Hi, I'm Jeff Apodaca.
Eric Strauss.
And welcome to this week's Let's Meet in the Middle. And, I hope if you guys, I know we ran a rerun last week about the opening of the session. And this week we're going to be talking about how the session finished. It finished last week. And we actually have Dan McKay and Jen Goulds on from the Santa Fe New Mexican. And we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, if only people could see our Twitters or our text messages. Last week during the debate, we had a good time.
It's a show within a show.
It was.
It's Shakespearean on one level.
But I will tell you. So
by
last
the way,
week,
please share our show on Facebook. Because the more people that can get a hold of this show, this is the future of politics, in my opinion.
But we're but let's get to the show.
Yep.
And we're talking about, so we want to talk about this week about the debate last week in Nevada and the caucuses last week, because you're still kind of accusing the caucuses, and I don't really. But no, I kind of laugh because I brought some slides in today.
It's a train wreck.
And so obviously the Culinary Workers Union, which is a big union in Nevada, attacked and were basically against Bernie because he wants Medicare for all, and they actually came out and said, wait a minute, we've worked really hard for our private insurance, our union insurance, and so some of Bernie's people started attacking some of the workers, United Workers.
These peaceful left aren't very peaceful, bro.
Well, it got heated. It got heated. But let me tell you,
Antifa's not very peaceful.
So we can talk about the results. So the caucuses basically, it's kind of like ranked choice voting. You go in,
it's horrible.
And you go in and you rank your top 3 candidates, and then if the first one makes it, you have to get so many delegates.
Qualified. Look, he ran away with it. Communism on the rise.
47%. Biden did better at 19%. Buttigieg did 15%.
I was surprised at Klobuchar.
I'm not.
I was surprised. No, because she was on the rise. Her and Buttigieg were on the rise.
Yeah, but again, on the rise in a 98% majority white state. Now let's look at some numbers here. No, let's look at some numbers here because everybody's talking about how Bernie can't get. I'm going to tell you right now, Bernie. Look, he got 51% of the Hispanic vote, 50% of what they call themselves very liberal. 48%, 49.
Okay.
48% basically support Medicare for all. But even in black voters, if you look at the poll here, the black voters where they said Biden was running away with it, pretty well split between four. Especially you look at Sanders.
Warren, she's your last minority in the race right now.
Yeah, because she's 1,052nd Native American.
Actually, she's. The one minority in the race is not doing well.
And I'm trying to explain to my friends. If you look at the next slide, you look at the moderates to conservative Democrats, very well split. But even Sanders got 24% versus Biden. So what I'm saying is Bernie is picking up a lot of the support between the blacks where they didn't think he was going to get it, the Hispanic vote, and I think that's where we're kind of seeing that across the board. But let me tell you, I want to talk about some numbers real quick because I know you're going to want to jump in on this.
Well, no, I'm just going to let you because let me predict the future. The success we're experiencing is all because of Barack Obama.
Well, that's later. But Warren is basically Warren went downhill when she had to release her numbers, and I think you saw last night. We laughed about it this week. 60 Minutes. Bernie Sanders was on 60 Minutes this week. And that
interview is going to hurt him, by the way.
Well, it's ridiculous. He talked, and let me be very frank.
The interview is going to hurt him.
On CBS, did the numbers. The average American within his Medicare for All would spend $29,000 a year on taxes.
Yeah.
So their thing, and I went back and looked. Obamacare, the average person is paying about $10,000, even with copays. My private insurance, I'm paying about $15,000 to $16,000, which I still think is too high. And I know people paying.
And I don't know how you're getting that number. I mean, I have very good insurance with Presbyterian. And I don't know. I only get so. Well, hold on.
Most expensive insurance in the state.
Okay, hold on.
Most expensive insurance in the state.
Jeez, Pete. I can only go with so many insurance providers through my company, right?
You don't have to.
I work for APS.
Well, by the way, your insurance, I thought it was union free.
What's union free?
I don't know. I thought APS union leaders got insurance free through APS.
What?
Don't you get insurance free through APS? That's what they tell me. That's what the unions tell me. Anyway, but my point is,
so you can see how much goes towards dental, vision,
I know exactly
and
how much.
healthcare.
Well, and I keep telling you guys to shop around.
Where? I don't know what.
So my point is, we can.
Obama,
by the way, we'll do a whole.
Does nothing but cost me money. By the way.
Well,
so and I'm as middle class as they come.
Speaking of that, how the Dems? Look, let's be very clear.
Tax.
Let's be very clear. I think Bernie is going to run away. We're going to run away with it.
Are you kidding me?
I do.
Even after that interview.
Well, the interview just came out, so let's see.
I think more Democrats are going to stay home. I think more reasonable-minded Democrats are going to stay home.
If they stay home, that means he's going to get the nominee even more.
But I'm telling you, during the presidential election, if he gets your nominee, more Democrats are going to stay home.
I want to show you something, because you talk about Trump and the economy, and I want to show you something. I brought something in. And by the way, this is from the Department.
We've been booming for 8 years of Obama.
The U.S. Department
of Labor.
And basically, if you look at the GDP,
look at that.
Right, and we all know what happened. We all know what happened between 07 and 08 and 09. The economy tanked. And basically, you can blame the Clinton administration, the Reagan administration, and the Bush administration. You can blame everybody.
But why not? Why don't you blame Obama? He has 2 years in there.
No, go back to the first slide. Go back to the GDP slide.
He has 2 years in there.
Go to that slide. But no, my point is, you guys always talk about how great Trump's doing, and I'm not saying Trump's doing a bad job. I'm not saying he's doing a bad job.
He's killing it right
now. Barack Obama and George Bush had higher GDPs.
Job numbers up.
And
more minorities.
And if you go back, let me finish. And if you go back
to, killing it.
If you go back, now he does have the lowest unemployment.
Yes,
I don't disagree.
Look at that. Booyah!
But let me show you. Let me show you this. And this is Department of Labor. The unemployment started back. Obama basically created George Bush and Obama. See, you don't like to listen to facts.
I'm listening.
You laugh at them and you make fun of. No, I'm just saying
it's funny to me.
I'm just saying is if the Democrats were smart, they would go after Trump. They would go. We're talking about this presidential election. What I'm saying is you have to give the Obama administration, who inherited one of the worst economies in the history of this country, they put a $1.7 trillion stimulus package together.
You think Democratic policies right now are making our economy grow?
My point is, I'm bringing this to the table. This is Department of Labor information. You have to give Obama some credit for turning the economy around. And I do think Trump's policies have done very well, but I'm not going to let you overtalk me on this segment.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to bring this to very clear is if the Democrats want to win, they'll challenge Trump
and
on the economy. Well, they'll take some advantage, not about these social programs.
Okay.
And speaking of social programs, that's what our show's about today.
Yes, 30-day session.
Our 30-day session, that's what it's about. And we're going to have Dan and Jens on from the Santa Fe, New Mexican and Albuquerque Journal talking about that. And so, but look, to summarize, because I know I monopolized this segment because I had to, but to summarize, I think our party's in trouble if it's going to be Bernie Sanders.
Democrats are in trouble.
I think our party's in trouble.
Look at me, America. If you're a reasonable-minded Democrat, switch parties now. Go ahead. Sorry.
Right, and go to your party, who's so open and welcoming.
Well, I'm not a Republican.
What are you registered?
I'm registered Republican, so I can vote. So I can vote in the primaries.
So why don't you register as a Democrat and vote in the primary? Anyway, hey, we got to get started, but we're going to be started. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook Live, and we'll be back right after.
Let's meet in the middle.
Let's meet in the middle.
In a time of a divided America, two people from different points of view sit down to talk about the problems, to talk about ideas, to talk about life, and to find common ground. It is now time for Let's Meet in the Middle with your hosts Eric Strauss and Jeff Apodaca.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us now, Dan McKay and Jens Gold. It's Danish or something, right?
Correct.
Jens.
Not or something. It is
Danish. See, I got it right. Jens. Makes me want to do like a clog dance or something. I don't know.
See what I'm saying?
It's cool.
See what I'm saying?
No, it's good.
This is what I got to deal with.
No, but look.
And by the way, I apologize on the first segment because I had to get in my saying because he always interrupts and doesn't make any sense.
You're so full of it as you talk over me. Okay.
I'd be up to watch the clog dance.
Anyways, yeah. See. That's what I do. I bring the entertainment. Anyways, let's start with the 30-day session. You were in the wrap-up video. You were not, Jens, right?
Well, I don't work for the Albuquerque Journal.
Right.
Yeah, the wrap-up video you're talking about was
Dan,
for the Albuquerque
and they put a nice YouTube video up, kind of wrapping up the segment, the 30-day session, and the highlights. But you can jump into, and we're going to kind of vet it out. You're with, right now, the Santa Fe, New Mexican, and you're with the Journal, just to kind of recap. So, let's get to it. Red flag law.
It passed. It'll probably be signed this week. It was pretty intense, as you might imagine, with sheriffs turning out in opposition, explaining what they felt like were some legal problems with the bill, and then on the other hand, you had people who had had relatives who had shot themselves, and there was a lot of kind of emotional testimony. It was probably one of the most emotional debates of the session.
Jens, what did you guys see on that from the Santa Fe, New Mexican side, the reporter side? Because we had pro and against the red flag laws, just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I wasn't going to think it was going to pass. it seemed like George Munoz was a swing vote.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Dan in terms of public comment and the emotionality surrounding all the hearings where that bill was heard. On the floor of the Senate, it was the most suspenseful vote, I would say, at least on the floor of either chamber that we had all session, because it was very narrow. It was 22-20. We didn't know how the cards were going to fall. And yes, Senator Munoz, who no one was really sure how he was going to vote, ended up voting for it, which was a key, and Pete Campos as well. Right. Those were key votes to get it through.
And I think George, and I don't know this because I actually reached out to him. I'm friends with the senator, with all of them, and I reached out to him, and he wouldn't call me back because I think he wanted me to. I wanted to quote for our show.
Well, he wants that to go as quietly away as possible because he realizes this is going to be an absolute. And this next election will vet it out or not. 112 seats up, and I'm telling you, people who voted for that red flag law better be accountable for it because it's one of the worst laws we passed in the state, period.
Well, let me ask you, out of your two newspapers, because what Eric basically says it's unconstitutional. We've had some experts on saying it wasn't really unconstitutional or hasn't been proven to be unconstitutional. Was that part of the debate on the floor? Was that part of the debate in the segments?
Yeah, yes, there was a lot of debate over whether there were adequate due process provisions, basically, someone who's falsely accused. Mm-hmm. They did make some changes. They revised the bill so only law enforcement officers can file the petition rather than a family member. I think there are other states that have these laws, so presumably there is a way to do them legally, but that was an important part of the debate.
Well, we already had a mental health law.
Well, I think that was that was one of the big things that we had talked about on the show.
Again, why do we need this red flag law? And the big caveat for me is you're guilty until proven innocent. How do you get your gun back? Mm-hmm. You know, and was
that debated on the floor?
No,
was that
because
debated in
nobody
committee?
has an answer.
I'm asking them.
Yeah.
Well, there are specific provisions in the bill. So first, your gun, if the judge issues the court order, your gun is confiscated for 10 days, and then if they find and they did raise the standard. It was going to be probable cause, and now it's going to be it's going to be preponderance of the evidence. If the judge finds that, then the gun or the firearms are confiscated for 1 year. I'm assuming that you do get it back.
But you give them up for 10 years or 10 days. Off the top. So
again,
guilty until proven innocent. You're giving them up immediately. And then what? Okay, so now what if I lock them in a safe? I mean, do I have to open the safe? What if I don't open the safe? Do they torch weld it? Do we send in a SWAT team? I mean, how far are they willing to go with this red flag law? You see what I'm saying?
See what I got to
No,
do
but
with
nobody's
it.
answering the questions because I'm a common sense guy.
But really?
Yeah.
I've never really noticed that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but my point is, I think some of the changes they made in the bill. I was against the first bill. We had a show about it. We had a show about it. I think the changes. My concern was, does it endanger law enforcement? I think look, we had Tony Mays on. I think allowing Tony to make the decision, is this guy a danger to my officers, a danger to society, I think that was a good compromise.
So when you get the gun back and you kill yourself with it anyways, what are they going to do then? How are they ever going to prevent someone?
Was that one of the big debates? Because that's all Eric harps about.
No, but it's a great question.
That's all Eric harps about. Well, let them try and answer something.
That was one of the points of debate in terms of the people against the bill, the sheriffs and others saying, you can take away, saying it's not the gun that's the problem, it's the person that's the problem. If you take away the gun, they might harm themselves or others with some other weapon. So yes, that was part of the debate.
And then the Journal ran the article where the dad went to dad's house and got the gun out of a garage. So now, with extended families here in New Mexico,
by the way, it was a boyfriend, not the dad.
Okay, so
it was a boyfriend, not the dad.
Yes, but do we go?
And he killed two young kids.
Right,
and
so
killed
now do we
a mother
confiscate cousins' guns, dad's guns, friends' guns?
Law enforcement,
whose guns do we confiscate?
They'll never stop with him. Law enforcement and a judge will make that decision.
But
and I'm okay with it.
It's a ridiculous.
Well, let's keep moving on because he'll argue the whole time.
Legalizing recreational
cannabis.
Didn't happen.
And I figured it wasn't going to happen. I know we've had shows about that. Tell us a little bit, our audience a little bit, about the debate that was going on. Was it even close? Because I never thought it was going to be that close.
Well, it never got out to the floor. So it was tabled in the second Senate committee, which was the Judiciary Committee. And what surprised me about it is there was such emphasis put on that throughout the year during the interim by the administration. They had a task force that was meeting all the time. They hammered all these details. There was a lot of press on it, a lot of outreach from the administration on it. And I wondered, did they not know that they probably didn't have the votes all year long to put such emphasis on it, and then have somebody who said all along that they probably don't support it follow through with that, and then it was just over. And it didn't really make a splash at all.
And Dan, the Albuquerque Journal did a study, because I know the task force did a study that showed 71% or 72%, which I don't think it was ever that high. But the Journal, Sanderoff and you guys did a poll that showed 61% of the support, which I think is probably around there. Where did you guys feel, that was coming in from that perspective? What did you see on that side?
Well, marijuana legalization has been really popular with the public. I mean, repeatedly through ballot issues, through surveys. In this case, the problem is when you get down into the details. How do you deal with workplace intoxication, roadside testing for drivers? There's a lot of, there are a lot of folks who agree with the concept, but then they kind of run into these problems.
Unintended consequences.
Unintended
That's
consequences.
the thing about legalization of cannabis is they're saying that he tries to, bang this drum of when you legalize, teenage use goes down. I find that ridiculous.
It doesn't go up 400% like you said.
But it's
it does.
ridiculous at best.
Does it go up 400%?
Yeah, of course it's going to go up.
Goes up 400%?
Because they shove those numbers
Does it go up
under the rug.
400%?
Yes, it'll go up 300% immediately when they legalize it. So,
But bottom line is, looking at the committee, I don't think they've had the votes the whole year. I think the committee kind of isolated some people. Did you guys see senators and representatives? The House was going to push it through. I thought about that. When it hit the Judicial Committee with Cervantes, Cervantes ran for governor, ran on not legalizing it. I knew it wasn't going to get out of his committee. Did you guys run into some of that back and forth with the senators? Did you have a sense it was going to get to the floor during the early days?
No, because even if it passed judiciary, it would have to go to finance, and both the chair and vice chair of finance are against it. So it seemed like a long shot. Were you in that committee meeting, the judiciary meeting?
No, but it was pretty clear it was a long shot the whole time. Right. I mean, without the Senate changing its composition, without some different senators or different leadership, it's pretty clear that it's facing a pretty skeptical chamber there.
But so I learned something new about what these politicians can do in Santa Fe. Apparently there's these dummy bills that are floating around, and they have nothing in them, right? Mm-hmm. And so they can take, like the union bill. They took this bill, and it was to make union workers where I could ask you for your card. Paul Gessing and I vetted this out on my radio show. So they knew it wouldn't get past the Judiciary Committee. So what they did is they copied and pasted into a dummy House bill and ramrodded it through, and then it made its way to Grisham's desk without going through the one committee that they knew would stop it. So why didn't they play those shenanigans with the cannabis bill? Because I know that Grisham wanted this thing shoved down our throats, and I was amazed it didn't go through. You knew it wouldn't, but I was amazed. Because they can do so many shenanigans. Did you know about these dummy bills?
Absolutely, I knew about those.
I mean,
That's
why
the way the
wouldn't they
system
try
works,
to pull
by
some
the way.
shenanigans with that, right?
I just think it was too high profile.
Yeah.
I just think it was too high profile. Yeah. It was, this was too big of a bill, too big a whole profile to do that. On the moving forward, what was the response to for it failing? Moving forward, are they going to now the conversations I'm having is we're gonna address it next year in the 60-day session.
Yeah, they want to keep pushing it.
And now basically get it to the voters, which I believe has been the Democratic strategy all along. Get it on the ballot in 22. So I think all this is just preparing for 22. Do you guys see that?
The governor said in her post-session conference, press conference, said maybe in terms of putting it on to the voters. I think first of all, it's much more suited for a 60-day session than a 30-day.
Right.
That kind of a bill. But we'll have to see how they roll it out.
Do you have any ideas why it was such a big issue in a 30-day session? Like, why would you, the red flag didn't seem 30-day to me, and the cannabis bill didn't seem 30-day. So the two most popular bills that made the most press in this session made no sense in a 30-day for me. Why were they there?
Well,
is the governor worried about getting reelected? I mean, why would you want to push this agenda through now?
I think 30 days are always they're always open to other items. Mm-hmm. Cannabis legalization, given the complexity, was a really difficult one for 30 days. But red flag, that was something that had been through one chamber before, and there wouldn't. it would waste some time to have everybody there and not have them do anything except the budget and a handful of budget bills. So I think it does make sense to have other items come up, and that's, one of the powers the governor has. But you're right. I mean, cannabis faced skepticism last year. It faced skepticism this year. I mean, it was hard to see how it was ever going to get through.
One thing to just add to that, I think one thing that pushed the gun bill in particular was the El Paso shooting. I mean, that happened between
Right, and there were senators that jumped on board this year that
might not have.
That might not have. Anyway, we're going to go to commercial, but when we come back, we're going to talk about education and your favorite college
Free college.
College opportunity zone and the state budget.
Free.
But don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook on Let's Meet in the Middle, New Mexico Democrats for Democracy.
One House Strauss
One House
on
Strauss.
Twitter.
And don't forget, especially veterans, if you guys need a great mortgage, Ben Lucero at Indigo Mortgage does a great job, especially VA loans. We'll be back right after this.
Find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, or you can email us at meetinthemiddlenm@gmail.com.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Dan McKay, Jen's Gold, Dan McKay joining us from the Albuquerque Journal and the Santa Fe New Mexican. Thanks so much for coming in, by the way, and putting up with our
And at commercial, Eric wants to know how many
Yes.
more bills the legislators will ever pass.
88 bills passed in a 30-day session.
Which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, is the least amount of bills they've ever done. Is that correct? Something like that?
It's a fairly small number.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
like, yeah.
Because they took up so
You know,
much
Mr.
time with the red flag.
Mr. Radio
Yeah.
Guy, you got to pay
They
attention
took-
a little bit more.
Because they took up so much time
But
with the
let's
red
get
flag.
into
But go ahead,
education, because
yeah.
we didn't really talk about education because, look, the Early Child Education Fund, which I think they funded $320 million, I actually was for. I'm not saying you're against it, but
I'm tired of the spending.
well, but again, I don't look at this spending. I think that's a good idea. Early child education is a huge issue in the state of New Mexico. We fight every year about the land grant fund and the permanent fund, right? It's a conversation every campaign goes through. It's a conversation we have every year. I do agree with the governor on this one, where you can move $320 million that we have. They're not spending it. They're putting it into a fund. That passed pretty much unanimously, didn't it, across the board?
That was bipartisan.
It was bipartisan. And so I think that's a really good idea. You should be happy with this, Mr. Teacher. They're giving you a 4% raise
Again,
across the board
4% raise with increases in
of all your other
all
stuff.
the other stuff. So it's, I know this is going to sound wacky, but I look at the economics of it, and at the end of the day, when you have less money in your pocket, does it really matter?
Well, you got to talk about your union and your other fees. But let's get, what did you guys see on the floor? What did you guys see in committee on the educational spending? Because I know the Free College Opportunity Fund didn't get fully funded. It got half funded of $17 million. I'm still kind of confused on how they're going to implement that.
You're not the only one.
Well, so it passes, right? It passes. So what did you guys see? How's it going to get implemented, or what's it going to? Because I still can't figure it out. We'll start off with Jens.
Well, I actually printed out the page in the budget bill that has the opportunity scholarship because it's confusing.
It's confusing.
Well, it jumped around a lot. It originally was going to be $35 million. Then the LFC came out with a fiscal impact report that said it would cost 60, and then it's down to 17. So it appears that the way it finally came together was it's not enough money in there to give free college tuition to all New Mexicans, which was the original proposal.
Right.
Really?
Right.
Shocker.
So what it is now is it's more targeted. So you have to meet certain performance criteria.
You really? I thought it was just free for everybody, remember?
Well, clearly,
that was the big press conference. It's going to be free for everybody.
Clearly, we're not socialists across the board.
Wow.
So that's
Because the money's
Let
not
him
there.
finish.
Go ahead.
That's what was passed, is that there's certain in need components in terms of income and also in terms of performance that need to be met. I think they're still ironing out exactly how it's going to work, because the bill itself wasn't passed. There was an opportunity scholarship bill that didn't get through, but what they did is they included it in the main budget bill. So there's some flexibility there for the higher education
So basically,
department.
it could go away. First of all, they may not spend the money, go back to the general fund, and it could go away.
Yeah, the governor said at the end of the session she's going to try to increase the amount of funding next year for it, that this was a starting point. But yeah,
but how do you
things could change.
This is my question for you. You guys been studying, covering politics a long time. How do you propose a program and you have no idea how it's going to work? Like, who does this? Like, if I...
By the way, welcome to politics.
No, but yeah, but see what I'm saying? Like, why don't the voters demand better? Like, how do you propose that you're going to give free college to everyone? You have no idea how you're going to do it. You have no idea who's going to pay for it. You have no idea how you're going to implement it, but let's just pass it. It's got to be frustrating.
So Dan,
watching
what do you
this
see?
nonsense.
What do you see? What do you see?
Well, I think the governor probably was trying to start a conversation about how to do this. I mean, it was pretty clear that that legislators asked a lot of the same questions you're asking now, even Democrats.
Right.
So, you know, whether this is a good idea, is this enough money to do it? If we are going to put more money into this, perhaps we should target it more based on income. And so that's kind of what happened. But as Jen said, we don't know exactly how this is going to play out at this point. She did not get enough money to do what she had originally proposed. And you know, there's going to have to be some modification. I guess we just don't know what it's going to be yet.
But again, is it head scratching to you? What she originally proposed had no concept around it.
Let's keep in mind that
You know what I'm saying?
sometimes, let's remember that they have to get elected, and sometimes these bills or sometimes these proposals are politically driven.
Jens.
I actually think the original proposal did have a pretty clear
It did have a
concept
clear-
around it. It's just that it got changed.
Okay.
Because
What was the clear concept?
Well, it was going to be a free tuition for all
For everybody
New
that wanted
Mexicans, and it was going to be
That's not even
called a last dollar, which basically you had to first use the lottery and the Pell Grants and
Yeah.
the federal grants, and then that. There was concern from some lawmakers and also university presidents about that, and so they reworked it. And I think we just have to see what
I
comes
want to
out.
move.
Yeah.
I want to move into the state budget. The overall state budget. It was approved at $7.6 billion. It was an increase of $530-something million. Our legislators have increased the budget almost 16% in the last 2 years. Thank God for oil and gas. Let's put it that way. Even for the Democrats that voted for. The Democrats that want to get rid of fracking and they're proposing fracking or proposing an eliminated fracking. They sure are voting for these bills with all the spending.
The one thing I will give you, Oppo, is the reason we're on this show together is because at least when he would talk to me, he had a plan, right? And he could tell you how he's going to pay for things when he was running for governor. But now it feels like we're just going with stuff, and they're drunk on the money, and they have no plan of how these programs are sustainable.
Let's go back to the state budget, and I want to hear from both you guys because both your papers wrote big stories on the state budget and the overall state budget. Just a general summary of the state budget, good, bad, indifferent. What did you guys think from the Santa Fe New Mexican?
Well, it's not really our job to say whether good or bad unless it's our opinion pages. But what it was a 7.6% increase over last year. So if you add that to the previous year, it's actually around 20% over 2 years.
I guess you're right.
So yeah, a lot of, it was, of course, the main Republican sort of criticism and talking point throughout the session was overspending. They're spending too much. They wanted to propose around a 4% increase. 7 was actually less than what the governor had asked for.
The governor asked for 9.
Like 8.5.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of sort of back and forth between the House and the Senate. Some of it getting a little bit heated about what to include, what not to include. And at the end of the day, Senate Finance did reduce it by a fair amount, taking out some things. But it's a lot of money. I mean, they did put that oil money to use, for sure.
Dan, what did you see?
It is a huge increase over the last 2 years. I think one thing to keep in mind is that the budget did stagnate for a while, under the last bus cycle. So, if you're a Democrat, you're saying, well, we need to catch up a little bit. And then, the Republicans obviously are saying, well, let's be a little careful here. And some Democrats, that hey, if we're coming off a bus cycle, maybe we should not spend it all. So you kind of see these different forces.
And I do want
bear.
and you guys covered it better than me. But I want to put this in perspective. And so, rounding numbers, about 1.1 billion, but let's say $1 billion. They did move 27% into a surplus for future, right? They didn't spend all of it. So they put about 25% in. Let me finish. Okay. They then put the 320 into an early child opportunity. So they're not really spending that. They're putting that away for early child education. So that's good. They did put another $75 million to fix up para on the pension fund.
55.
55.
But it was going to be
It was
75.
gonna be- okay, so what I'm saying is they did put about half of it into funds that are going to strengthen us for future growth. So they didn't spend all of it. And then I will tell you, I want to get into capital outlay. They put $528 million into capital outlay, which are capital expenditure projects, which I think half of them are usually wasteful. So that's a whole different conversation we can have a show on. But over on that, is that accurate on the breakout of the surpluses of dollars?
Yeah, they clearly tried to put some of it into one-time things where, if you build a road, it's okay if you don't build it the next year. They tried to put some of the money into one-time purposes, or if you put it in an early childhood fund, you don't have to give it $300 million every year. Right. But there's a lot of pressure. I mean, you've pointed out the overspending concern. On the other hand, there are some Democrats who are facing pressure the other way, like, hey, you've got all this money, we have incredible needs. Why aren't you? If you can't do it now, when can you do it? So there's it's kind of a complicated dynamic.
So let me ask you real quick. Give me a second, Mr. Bully Pulpit here. I don't know. You're talking an awful lot today.
I am.
Okay.
I apologize.
So
I'm sorry.
I want to ask you.
I'm
No,
sorry.
it's fine. It's fine. Name one bill where the taxpayer actually got a break.
There was no tax
Solar
decrease.
tax credit.
Solar tax credit if you have solar.
So you have to spend money to get
To
the
get
tax
the
break
tax
on
credit.
solar.
I thought
Now
and
again-
they wanted the EV, but the EV didn't get through, right?
Correct.
So the one bill out of the 88, there's
I don't know
one.
if that's the only one. Were you going to say something?
Do you have something, Dan?
Well, I don't have the list of bills that passed, but there were a lot of proposals that would have given people breaks on their
But
taxes.
none of those passed.
None of them passed.
None of them passed.
And it's hard during
And
the
let me tell
30-day
you,
session
but,
also.
But out of the 88 bills, I would just want to go back to paint a picture for the average viewer out there. Was there any bill that passed that will put more money back into the taxpayer pocket? Aside from the solar credit. But then you got to buy solar.
Well, they'll argue, and I'm not saying I agree with this. They're going to argue that free education, college education is going to help families. They're going to argue early child education is going to help families, which I agree with that element of it.
Yeah.
But you're correct. In fact, McQueen, which we talked about, he wanted to increase our gas tax by 31 cents. Right?
I would definitely want to hit that a little. Are we going to?
You could also say that the salary raises put more money in people's pockets, right?
Yeah,
Well, the
there's-
salary
there's
increase
stating-
for teachers
and
is
state
that-
employees.
and state
employees.
employees.
So- and I'm one of
But-
those advocates that
but
I
if-
think teachers, and I know they raise your
We're not going to see 4%, dude.
no, but what happens is you get
Did
the
I ever show
4%. You
you
get
one
the
of my
4%.
paychecks, by the
Another
way?
story.
Okay.
We get don't you love how I got?
Well, no, where we had a
But
raise
no, but
and
my
it said
point
2
my
cents,
point is
and
we
they
should
put it as
build
a line
in we
item.
should build in
It was
3 to
funny.
4% increase on salaries for state employees and teachers across the board every year. That's just inflation. I mean, that's what we should do. What happens with APS is they stick you guys with all these other benefits they hit you with, so you end up taking less money. But anyway, we're going to
Okay.
come back.
Yes. Okay.
Dan and Jens are going to stick with
wanna
us.
pick up on the
and
gas
we'll
tax.
pick up on
Cool.
the gas tax. I still want to talk about some capital outlay stuff. And then look, we have to get to crime because crime is a big issue in
Don't
the state of
do
New
the
Mexico.
crime.
And really, I don't think they did a whole lot for crime. But anyway.
I don't either.
But we'll be back right after
is-
this.
Get along down the road. We got a long, long way to go. Scared to live, scared to die. We ain't perfect, but we try. Get along while we can. Always give love the upper hand. Paint a wall, learn to dance. Call your mom, buy a boat, sing a song, make a friend. Can't we all get along?
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the
By the
Middle.
way, I want-
off the record. By
Off the
way.
record.
Off the record.
Eric's now learning what off the record is with a couple of
No,
reporters on our show.
Dan McKay Dan McKay and Jen's Gold. Dan's from the Journal. Jen's is from the Santa Fe New Mexican. Thanks for joining us again for our third segment. And so let's pick up on state spending, the budget. Are there really any kind of spikes that you see or outliers that you went, that's interesting?
I thought it was interesting that they are continuing to put some more money into early childhood programs. There's been this big, broader debate about the land grant permanent fund, but even without that, they are really sharply ramping up early childhood spending and on pre-K, child care assistance, home visiting. That's
And I do think that is one area that we need to spend more resources in, and you got to do it private and public strategies. But we have young kids, man. That is an early development stage, and if you don't help those kids before they're turned 6, they don't ever catch up. So I think those are huge
And I would
opportunities.
agree with you, with the caveat of parent accountability. And that's the real issue with a lot of these early programs is the parents, I would say parent accountability in high school. Anytime you're getting something for free, you should have an accountability piece there
And
as
we don't
well.
disagree with that.
So,
Jen, let me
there
ask you a question. Let's go to
That's me.
within the budget on capital outlay. You've worked other states, you've worked for other newspapers. Have you seen a craziest way that we do capital outlay, capital expenditures than any place else?
It's a bizarre process.
It's a bizarre
And if you compare it to the way the regular budget is done, throughout the year, you've got revenue estimates and updates on that, and then the state agencies put out their requests, and there's all these hearings in the House and Senate committees, and it's very fleshed out, it's very public, it's very transparent. Capital outlay is almost the opposite. It was very hard to get information during most of the session on what they were doing because it all happens behind closed doors. And then there's 2 bills that come out, and then the Monday before the end of the session, which is 3 days before, the committees vote on them, give them about 5 minutes of debate, unanimously passed, and that's all you hear.
Well,
Which
and
is-
so
it's almost like a covert
our
operation.
audience knows, and business owners, in any business you have capital expenditures or capital improvements, and so what our state does, and any surpluses we have, the House gets a third, the Senate gets a third, the governor gets a third, and they're basically pet projects for capital investments within their communities.
And they don't have to
And
tell
it's-
the public how
they don't
they
have to tell
spend
the
them?
public anything.
No, they don't have to say who supported which project.
Right.
You can see a list of the
You see a list of
projects,
projects.
but you don't know if it was the governors or which senator or which legislator supported each one.
it's a very strange, secretive process.
So what if I'm doing a little kickback game and you have no idea who's connected to what money or what
Exactly.
project
Well,
where?
Let's go into
It's corruption.
Before we get into the election year, I want to go back into that. So you bring up a good point. So
Okay.
there was a bill to pay our legislators, and people always I'm in favor of paying legislators. In fact, I'm in favor of paying legislators between $60,000 and $110,000 a year with the full staff.
Hey-o.
It would cost about $6 million on a $7.6 billion budget, but our legislators would then have to work full-time. They would have to be in session 180 days out of the year. So we run into these 30-day sessions. Them and their family, which the way I'd structure it is you couldn't do capital outlay projects and you couldn't have a state contract or have another job. The way our system's set up today, our legislators are basically either retired or they're there representing their industries.
Yeah.
That died quick. It didn't seem like they had any legs. I don't think on a 30-day session it was ever going to get through anyway. What was the feeling on the, because I'll be very frank, when I've talked to legislators, majority of them are against getting paid. They like the system. They like the system.
another way.
What did you guys see on that?
Well, that concept has passed the House before. On the Senate side, I actually thought it had a chance this year because it reached the Senate floor,
Right.
which seemed like that would have been sort of the critical area. But I think everybody up there is afraid of making it look like they're trying to get money for themselves in their salary. And you're right, there are a lot of different ways to do it. You could do a full-time legislature. States have really all kinds of systems.
All kinds of systems. And I know when you talk to our audience, you talk to people that are like,
Nobody wants to pay politicians.
why are we paying? Why are we paying them? I'm like, you get what you pay for. And so, but saying that, well, on that note, let's switch.
I'll disagree with you on that because in this state they're going to vote for their person no matter what.
Well, that's a whole different show.
That's a whole different show. But
We'll
it's
bring
true.
them on
You
too.
do, yeah.
But let's get into it's election year. Who you're going to vote for? And so
same
it's 112 people up for re-election. Look, let's get into. You guys reported on it. the Republicans, Democrats going at it. Some of them, it got very heated. They tried to filibuster on some of these things. Like, let's talk to our audience about that. What did you guys see, Jens? We'll start with you. What did you guys see on the political side of it between both parties, and even the progressives versus the moderates in the Democratic Party?
Well, there's a lot of components to answer that question. I think first of all, there were a lot of bills that had bipartisan support, which sometimes we forget when we see the antics that happened in the last couple days. But the last couple of days, and especially the last 24 hours, were full of a lot of bickering and antics on both sides, the House and the Senate side. And there was the filibuster on the Senate side. On the House side, they actually concurred on the budget twice, because the first time Republicans came in shouting at the speaker saying, you went ahead when we were in the back room, and they were very upset, and they used a bad language to direct it, all this stuff. So it kind of blew up. But really, the Republicans, especially in the House, that's all they have. I mean, they have such a small...
Decimated.
It's a very small caucus, and so really those sort of guerrilla tactics, which they used throughout much of the session, trying to take non-controversial bills and debate them 3 hours, that's about all they had, and they used it. They used it a lot.
Dan, what did you see?
There was a lot of tension, procedural gridlock. On the Senate side, you also see tensions within the Democrats. There are some conservative leaders, conservative to moderate Democrats who lead in the Senate, and they sometimes have tension with their more liberal counterparts. But yeah, there was these guys. They use every trick in the book to argue with each other, or they do both sides. Use procedural gimmicks sort of to slow things down or speed things up.
Now let's talk about the election, because we know Mary Kay Smith. I'm going to go off memory. Mary Kay Smith down south, John Arthur or Mary Kay Papen, John Arthur Smith. Thank you. The state senator from Silver City. I'm blanking out his name. Ramos. Clemente Sanchez, George Munoz. John Sapien is now not running, so that's opening up. And Richard. And there's a few others I'm probably missing. But there's 8 or 9 state senators that are now being challenged in the primaries from their own party, from progressive candidates. They're targeting mostly moderate, conservative, Hispanic males. Is there, and I know the legislature probably puts that aside, but did you see some of that friction there between those parties, the progressives and the Democrats within the party? And how do you think that's going to play out during the election season on how they voted?
There were, Munoz, interestingly enough, you mentioned him, he has generally been skeptical of gun control legislation. He ended up being one of the decisive votes this time to help pass red flag. Whether that's a political concern or just the proximity of the El Paso shooting or what. But 2 years ago we did see a lot of these kinds of moderate to conservative rural Democrats got wiped out in the House and were replaced by more progressive challengers. So it'll be interesting to see whether that happens this time also, because these aren't just senators. They're chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Senate Corporations, the President Pro Tem. I mean, these are like really
big positions,
big heavyweights.
We talked about it earlier, and I know there was rumors. You're saying it's factual. I'm not really sure yet, but you're from Santa Fe. You live in Santa Fe, New Mexican. Brian Egolf represents that district. He is being primaried. What's the feeling there within the Santa Fe? Because I would consider Mr. Egolf, Brian's a friend.
Liberal,
I would consider him pretty progressive.
He's pretty liberal.
Was surprised
He's not liberal enough.
That whole
to
east, I was going to say, that whole east side of Santa Fe is like, you're not progressive enough.
Santa Fe is a liberal place.
Wow.
Is it that? Are they that upset because he didn't shut down oil and gas that gave him $1 billion to spend?
I'm not really sure. I mean, yes, his primary challenger, Lila June, is more progressive than she wants to ban fracking. So that's where she's at. What's behind that? I don't know. I mean, is she just running because she wants to run, or is there some underneath everyone's sort of coordinating to make these primary challengers happening? I don't know, but it is going to be interesting because when we talked about before some of these bills, like cannabis or the abortion bill from last year, those bills may just not ever pass unless the composition of the Senate changes. And that could happen this year if some of these candidates lose in the primaries. And so, we could have
it could swing back a bit too.
Well, that's what's going to, Dan,
we used to be a pretty solid swing state.
And I tell people all the time, I said, Trump winning the state of New Mexico at the presidential election is very, very doable, very possible. specifically in the rural communities.
I went to the Trump rally. It's very
And I do
doable.
think there's a
It
big
was
push.
massive.
There's a big Democratic Hispanic push that feel like they've been pushed away from the Democratic Party going that direction. Do you guys see that helping? I mean, I think if Trump does well in the state of New Mexico, whether he wins it or not, if he does well, it'll help those 6 or 7 seats that the House gave up. Are you guys going to be tracking that? What's going on with that, do you see?
Yeah, I mean, well, the Democrats clearly are playing defense. They won seats that nobody ever thought they were going to win 10 years ago. They're winning in the Northeast Heights of Albuquerque, So there definitely is opportunity for Republicans to push back. And it was just 4 years ago the Republicans had a majority in the House, a narrow majority. So
well, and I will tell you, and then there's some McQueen, Representative McQueen from Santa Fe / Stanley. He's being challenged now in the primary with Becky King Spindle, and that's Bruce King's granddaughter. And again, he's a very progressive, supporting that east side of Santa Fe, and the whole Stanley Moriarty area feels like they've been left out. So here's a conservative Democrat actually primarying a progressive. I think you're going to see some of that happening on the House seats also on the Democratic side. Are you hearing some of that also? Or are you seeing that yet? Or not yet?
That, like you mentioned, that we're seeing a big urban urban-rural divide, and that would be an example of a seat that perhaps it's going to move more conservative.
Because it kind of overlaps on both.
And also to go back to your earlier question, I think the fact that if Trump makes good on his pledge to try to win New Mexico, which remains to be seen, if he's going to put in the sort of spend that he said he was going to, that could really help some of these Republican candidates, both for the state and also for the congressional races, particularly the Tory small race, because you got the down ballot, people.
Right. And now
he's going to draw more
the
voters.
scandal with the absentee ballots with Xochitl Torres as well.
Well, I don't know if it was a scandal,
Yeah,
but
there
they
was.
showed up.
They were showing fraud.
They showed up with about
They were
8,000
showing
or
fraud.
3,000. They showed
There's
up with 3,000.
clearly fraud in that
But we
election.
got about 20 seconds to go. The last say, I'll give you guys the last word. With 20 seconds to go, what do you see moving forward? Do you think it was a good session? Do you think it was a bad session? What do you think?
I think it was an interesting session.
He's a reporter. They're not supposed to give their but you can tell the good and the bad about it. Dan, I'm not asking you guys'
I
opinion.
think Democrats are being exposed now for tax you to death, even when they have a surplus.
Again,
but you don't have to weigh in on that. Off the
I
record.
thought it was a pretty productive session in terms of the number of bills that got, the number was not that high, but the consequential bills that got through, red flag, pension solvency, there was some pretty big stuff that got through that I wasn't sure would.
Right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. I
Thank you.
hope we didn't spin the audience too much on a lot of things, because we knew we could go on and on for this. But thank you guys. We'll have you guys back.
Three
I like it when you guys meet in the middle. That's my favorite.
I don't know. We'll summarize the show after
I
this.
think we are the middle.
I think so too. But hey, don't forget Indigo Mortgage does great mortgages for you.
Yep.
So Ben Lucero at Indigo Mortgage. But we'll be back right after this.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
I am a nurse,
a firefighter, a college student,
a mother, and I am an American soldier.
I will always be ready
for every storm
and disaster that threatens my community.
I will always be there to protect my neighbors,
my family,
and my country.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
We are the Army National Guard.
Visit nationalguard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. It's quite the show,
I don't
my
know,
friend.
I don't know if we met in the middle on a lot of stuff today, and I really appreciate Jens and Dan being on.
They're really
and I know,
good.
And I know,
I mean, we're blessed to have
and
good
when I
reporters.
ask them
They're
questions, I'm not really asking their opinions. I'm asking what they saw in the reporting, and so, and yes.
But it's kind of refreshing, to be honest with you, to see journalists that really don't want to, journalists aren't supposed to give an opinion.
Well, that's what I tell all my friends. I believe.
But we live in a time now more than ever where they are.
But see, I disagree, because you guys always compare journalism, and then you talk to
broadcast journalism.
No, you
or
talk.
what?
No, you always compare my friends, and you do this too. You compare journalism like Jens and Dan versus the Rush Limbaugh's or versus the
No,
the,
I'm
the
talking
talk
about like the
shows.
CNN
No,
or
those,
the
but
Fox.
those are
They're-
opinionated.
well,
those
they're
are
not supposed to be.
opinionated.
They're supposed to be
That's not
broadcast
true.
news.
No, that's not true. They're not broadcast news. Those are cable news companies that have opinions. I'm trying to explain to all my friends that. ABC, NBC, Fox News, Sunday. Anyway, that's a whole different story.
Okay, yeah.
But you know,
we're getting too distracted. Okay, look.
To talk about
I
it.
wanted to just compliment Jens and Dan,
Right.
just because I liked. It was refreshing to see them try not to give an opinion, but report what was going on.
Well, and that's why we wanted them on more
there
than
you go.
anything else, because it
That's-
wasn't really,
wanted
they
to
weren't going to
finish
help
that
us kind of
thought.
reach in the middle. But,
Yeah.
you know, what I said was, when we first had our show about red flag laws, I think both you and I were against the bill. Well, again, we talked off the air. It's like, look, it's about meeting in the middle. This was going to pass, or is going to be very thin passing. And so I thought they had the votes, so why not make changes? At least, I'm not saying I'm pleased with the bill, but I'm saying at least the Tony Mazes of the world and the district judges of the world are making the decisions, not like your concern was. So at least that there was some compromise there.
I still don't see how Tony Mace and the judges of the world are making the decision. Anybody can file the petition.
Not anybody.
They can go
They can go
file
to
the
they can go
petition.
to the policeman.
Correct.
The policemen go do an investigation,
But
and
again,
they determine
putting
but-
more
but-
burden on the police,
Well,
and
again, I believe
you're
a compromise.
sacrificing your gun for 10 days.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm just saying
just to recap my thoughts on this.
Hurry up.
So they're taking your
'Cause you
your
recap it all the time.
private possession.
right. Because you're
Before
endangering
you've committed
because
a
police
crime.
officers,
You haven't killed yourself, you
police
haven't shot
officers, and
anybody,
a district
you haven't killed
judge,
your-
police officers and a district judge have made a decision.
haven't committed a crime.
Law enforcement and a judge have made a
They
decision.
have no right to take your
Well,
possessions.
well, they do
You
now.
haven't done anything
They
wrong.
do now. They do now.
There's suspicion.
Okay.
Anyways, next.
We're never going to meet in the middle
Teacher
because
raises.
you know. Well, on the teacher raises, I think
Or
state.
education
I
in
think
general.
I think state and teacher employees. The problem with APS, because you always complain about this, the problem with APS is you give them a raise, but then they raise all your everything
gets
else,
raised,
and so
yep.
then you actually take less home money away. So that's my issue, and you're dealing with Presbyterian because that's what you choose to APS. My point is going to healthcare. We talked about it earlier. Bernie is probably going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party. It's going to hurt the Democratic Party when you start doing numbers. The numbers don't add up, and I encourage everybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, to go to 60 Minutes YouTube and find the Bernie Sanders interview. Because here's a poll right now. He's leading a national poll. He's leading in South Carolina. He's leading in some of the Super Tuesday states.
Your boy Joe has
Well,
faded
let me tell you
back.
right now. California, which is 448 delegates, right? California right now, Bernie's at 31, 32%. Everybody else is below 15. The rules of the state of California is if you don't get over 15%, you get no delegates.
Right.
And so Bernie could actually walk away with all the delegates, right? And so look, I think it's too late.
That was the big push. If you watch the Democratic debates, the final question was, do you want to follow the process or should right?
Well, I think
and
that
Bernie's like, nope.
First
if
person,
I'm the leader, I'm the man.
And I think
right?
the Democratic Party's been put in a situation now
Yeah, 'cause they
where
got
basically,
you have a
well, I was
communist.
at the last convention, and Bernie won 13 or 14 states, and at the convention they took his delegates away because the state party with the Democratic Party decided to move them over to Hillary, and I'm just going to tell people right now. If Bernie is leading, has the majority, probably won't have enough to claim it, but has the majority, and he doesn't get it, the progressive socialists of the party, they're going to burn the party down.
AOC has
They
already
will,
been
they will
threatening
burn
that.
the party down. And so,
They're
and
primarying
I've been
Nancy
telling
Pelosi.
that's why everybody.
Nancy
that's,
Pelosi.
Well, by the way, let me make this very clear.
Oh.
AOC, just so everybody knows, in New York City, AOC has 13 candidates running against her. Okay, okay. So there are 13 candidates running
Your
against.
party's in a mess.
I don't disagree with that. By the way,
They're
that's
a
one.
mess.
That's one place we meet in the middle. So, Super Tuesday is going to. Well,
Bernie
first of all,
flat out says,
this
I
week.
support Cuba.
Well-
Like Cuba did a lot of things.
Well-
Fidel Castro did a lot of things. What he doesn't understand is, you know what the first thing he did? He shot the opposition in the head.
Well, and on 60 Minutes, and I agree with you with this, on 60 Minutes, this is where my
Holy
party's in trouble.
macaroni.
And I've said this all along. If Bernie Sanders gets the nominee, and every indication looks like he's going to, if he gets the nomination, first of all, his health care plan, and this is what happened to Warren. their healthcare plans.
Don't bother me with the numbers, Jeff.
Bernie's numbers will go to $29,000 per average family.
Don't bother me with the numbers.
And
everybody needs healthcare.
These are the numbers. And so, but my point is on 60 Minutes when they pushed him for that, he's like, well, let's not get into the pennies. Let's not get into the pennies. You can't look at every nickel and dime. Well, yeah, you have
can.
to.
Yes.
Let me tell you, I've actually run the numbers, and if we do Warren's 2% wealth cap, and if we do Bernie's numbers, the numbers they come up to is about $600-700 billion when the program's going to cost
$7 trillion,
$1.2 trillion a year. So we're going to go into deficits, and again, if you look at all his programs. And you can debate some of those.
Study history.
But you could debate some of those.
Okay, would you live in communist Russia?
No, but let me tell you.
Would you live in
Cuba? With 30 seconds to go, let me
Venezuela.
tell you. If you look at my lifetime, people that get nominations or get elected, they're changing movements. And I tell people all the time, whether you like Trump or not, Trump was an anti-establishment movement that got him elected. Obama was a movement that got him elected. JFK was a movement. Even Bill Clinton was a movement. Whether you like it or not, Bernie Sanders is a movement.
It's a movement.
And now in Nevada, he's breaking down all these different things. So, but hey, we're going to be back right after this and wrap up the show. But again, Indigo Mortgage does a great job. But don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook Live at Let's Meet in the Middle, New Mexico, House of Strauss, and
One House
Democrats
Strauss
for
on
Democracy.
Twitter.
But we'll be back right after this.
Find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, or you can email us at meetinthemiddlenm@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. I mean, in terms of the middle, I think we are kind of on the middle on the red flag. Like you're still more for it than I am with the provisions. I'm not for it at all. I think we had enough laws in place. I think we had mental health laws.
And I agree with you there. We got to give the resources. But at least, look, if we're going to have these red flag laws, at least law enforcement, who I trust, and judges, whether they're liberal or conservative judges, at least they're making decisions, so it's not like every Joe Blow can go in and file.
I'll end with this thought. I don't want to live in an America where you're presumed guilty. Period. The end. Okay, let's move forward. Okay.
And then look, on the presidential race, it's going to be interesting. Next week's show we could talk about because we got South Carolina coming up, and then literally in 2 weeks, we got 10 days, we got Super Tuesday coming up. And Super Tuesday is going to make the decision, and it's very interesting because the debate, let's make it very clear, Bloomberg did horrible. And look,
he got his lunch eaten.
Got wiped.
I can't believe with that kind of money you can't get someone to prep you any better.
But hold on, it goes to show.
How do you not prep?
It goes to show. Look,
it's like he didn't do his homework.
No, but it goes to show. Like when you look at those kind of guys, or you look at even Trump, and that's why Trump fires everybody. They don't like to be talked to. They don't like to be listened to, and they're not.
But Trump was ready for the debates.
Well,
Trump killed Hillary.
No, not on issues. He just grandstanded. But my point is, we're talking about these type of guys. These type of guys are basically saying that
I can buy my way into the election. I guess is what he thought.
And again, he was a pretty good mayor, by the way. So. I was very interested to see how he performed because let me make this very clear, which I'm still proud of our Democratic Party. The poll shows 62% of Democrats are still willing to change tomorrow.
Do you think that some candidate can come out of the blue and take away the nomination at this point?
I don't think at this point. The only
you think it's Bernie?
I think it's Bernie.
I think Biden can come out of the
blue.
If
Bloomberg or Biden does well on Super Tuesday, they might be able to, and then we'll see how it goes. But hey, New Mexico, thanks for joining us this week. Don't forget you can find us on Let's Meet in the Middle and our YouTube channel and on Facebook. But hey, God bless you, and hey, remember, never give up and always find a way.
Go out and make a difference in the world.
God bless you, New Mexico.